Welcome, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to share my favorite Jewish holiday. As a child, Passover was fun and mysterious. First, there was great preparation and cleaning. The Passover dishes were taken down from the highest shelves and the others put away. I loved those dishes. I still remember what they looked like. Maybe they were special because they were used for only 8 days. At the Seder, there was a role for me and a place for me to shine. Opening the door for Elijah and learning the 4 questions by heart in Hebrew made me feel significant to the conversation and equal to the adults. With pride, I carried the water bowl without spilling to each person for sacred hand washing. Good memories. Next week, millions of Jewish families and friends in every country will sit at the Passover table and ask the same questions that have been asked for over 3,000 years. These are questions of justice and freedom. Each year's celebration is different, even though the questions are the same and the outline telling the story in the Haggadah is the same. It is different because we and our circumstances are different. It is said in every generation, we must see ourselves as if we were personally liberated from Egypt. The story is the same, but how we relate to it is different. I have a feeling this year we will reflect deeply and express passionately at our Seder tables. So I invite us today to enter the story as if we had been personally freed from Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is the Hebrew word for Egypt, and it means the narrow place. Therefore, the Passover Seder becomes a roadmap for spiritual growth and inner freedom. Our meditations on our present day bondage and desire for freedom gives us the opportunity to face our own narrow place, our perceived and real limitations, and to leave it and leave behind everything known. We crossed through the parting sea into the vast unknown of the wilderness. We marched on for the hope of freedom from oppression and finally entering the promised land. I've always been intrigued that the Israelites were slaves in Egypt for 430 years and wondered why didn't God help them before? In Exodus, it says, the children of Israel groaned from their servitude, and they cried out, and their plea for help went up to God. God hearkened to their moaning. God saw the children of Israel. God knew. I am touched by those words. They were slaves for hundreds of years, but seemed asleep to their harsh treatment, and they had no hope of power. But when the new Pharaoh instituted even more cruelty and decreed death to their newborn sons, they finally awoke and cried out for help, which seemed to be the catalyst needed to start God's intervention. This marks a new phase in their relationship, God and the Israelites. When the Israelites cried out to God for help, God sent Moses to demand that the Pharaoh release them. And God saw, and God knew. Was there a time when you asked for help from others or cried out to heaven, when you had to admit that you were powerless, constrained, in a dark night of the soul? What helped you through challenging times? After the 10th plague, Pharaoh finally tells Moses to go. This is what the Israelites took as they fled in the night: unleavened bread, the matzah; timbrels, which are hand drums used by the women to dance and sing in celebration; gold and silver given to them by the Egyptians, and which would later be turned into the golden calf; the bones of their revered ancestor Joseph, and rudimentary weapons. If you only had a few minutes to leave your home forever, what would you take? I thought often of this when the fires caused people to flee in the night in LA. I thought about the necessary physical objects to take, like my passport and bank info, but also what parts of me would be important to my survival, like courage and flexibility. What inner characteristics would you depend upon to get you through a challenging but also transformational time? After escaping Egypt, the Israelites journeyed through the wilderness for 40 years. They wandered, experienced hardship, learned to rely on God, and were tested in their faith and obedience to his commandments. But why did what is an 11-day journey take 40 years? The 40 years in the wilderness was not just about the physical journey, but also about spiritual growth, preparation, purification, and the establishment of a new identity for the Israelites. Many of the Israelites were afraid and wanted to go back to Egypt, where at least they had the constancy of food and shelter. They lost hope and faith and built false idols to appease their fears when Moses was on Mount Sinai. The journey through the wilderness was necessary to take Egypt out of the Israelites and transform their mindset of being oppressed and victimized. Only a new generation could enter the promised land, a generation who is able to venture forward with trust, knowing that they live in grace, knowing that God knew and God saw. Sometimes old patterns, though unhealthy, call us back to times that felt safe and familiar. But after 40 years, a new generation of Israelites who had been born in the wilderness was ready to enter the promised land under the leadership of Joshua. Who are you becoming as you walk through the desert? What kind of world are you helping to create? What mantra can give you strength to continue on? How do you connect to the people walking with you? Finally, we come to the promised land, the land of milk and honey. I am reminded of a dramatic scene in the movie Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. If you've seen it, you probably know what I'm going to talk about. Indiana Jones and his father face a series of trials, including a leap of faith across a seemingly impassable ravine. The trial is meant to test the faith of the person taking the leap, as it is revealed that the bridge is there only if the person stepping across has faith. Is it possible that entering the promised land only takes faith? That it is here within ourselves? A favorite poem of mine by Rumi says, I have lived on the lip of insanity, wanting to know reasons, knocking on a door. It opens. I've been knocking from the inside. Is it possible that the promised land is so near? Are you willing to believe that there is no place to get to, that we are connected to each other and to the natural world, seen and unseen, and bound together in love and light? In the poem, The Opening of Eyes, David White invokes this image to demonstrate a moment of clear-eyed seeing, that the sacred is not a celestial being, not a somewhere else or a sometime else. The experience of holiness, in fact, the ground under our feet is the holy ground right now. Here's his poem, The Opening of Eyes. That day, I saw beneath the dark clouds the passing light over the water, and I heard the voice of the world speak out. I knew then, as I had before, life is no passing memory of what has been, nor the remaining pages in a great book waiting to be read. It is the opening of eyes long closed. It is the vision of far off things seen for the silence they hold. It is the heart, after years of secret conversing, speaking out loud in the clear air. It is Moses in the desert, fallen to his knees before the lit bush. It is the man throwing away his shoes as if to enter heaven, and finding himself astonished, opened at last, fallen in love with solid ground. So welcome. The promised land is now, and it is here. Thank you.